I think of it this way. Okay, we know that this program, this team suffered personnel losses by way of the transfer portal. And of course, the NFL draft and people moving on. And also acquired some talent and maybe did not acquire as much talent as they lost. Okay. They were one of the 10 best teams in the country last year. They had to replace a top level quarterback. They replaced him with, maybe I started to buy into Dillon Gabriel a little bit too much at one point. And of course, he didn't play this past week. But I certainly, at the time that Caleb Williams was lost, Dillon Gabriel was signed through the transfer portal, thought initially, okay, they've acquired one of the 25 best quarterbacks in the country. Maybe it's a bit of a drawback from a talent standpoint, but still a very capable player. And I still think he is. But then maybe as we made our way through the offseason and there was a lot of talk about what he could do with this offense, I started to buy into a little bit more of what was possible versus what I initially thought was a downgrade from the Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams level quarterback play at Oklahoma in the last 10 years, and thought, they're going to be fine. And then, just to look at this team, when you bring in a capable coach, and again, even if there's been a downgrade in talent through the transfer portal losses, through the NFL draft, you bring in a capable coach and figure, yeah, maybe they take a step back. But what we've seen the last 2 weeks is just unfathomable that they would be playing, a couple teams that aren't going to be mistaken in any way for last year's Georgia team or some all-time great Alabama team. These aren't, they're good football teams, but my goodness, they've been obliterated.
Yeah, no, I think the word that I hooked onto there, Mark, and it was the same word that I used in the post game, is unfathomable. And on both sides of the ball, really. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard to know where to start, Mark. I mean, it was so bad on both sides of the ball. So let's latch on to what you had mentioned from a Dillon Gabriel perspective. And so, yeah, and I think for me coming in, knew that he was a clear downgrade from what they've had in the past. And then when you look at this, it's hard if you haven't watched the games and you just look at his statistics. I think he's completing over probably in the mid 60 in percentage of passes, 11 touchdowns, no interception. And if you don't watch the game, if you haven't watched the games, you'll say, man, like, he's just another great Oklahoma quarterback. But, in the last couple of games, it's been a lot of overthrows and things like that, just a lot of the mechanical things that's going on with him that certainly no one expected. One of the things that I heard consistently through spring and through fall camp was that he's a lot more accurate than I think they thought even coming in. So, so that's that's I think a surprising narrative. I think that going into as we're here 6 games in, and to your point, obviously didn't play last week, but him 5 games into his Oklahoma Sooner career, that's not a narrative that I expected that we would be talking about this year. Was his lack of just missing guys, like missing big time throws. So we'll see if he's able to play. But the biggest thing that is it's mind boggling to me, unfathomable, whatever word that you want to use. A program that is as rich traditionally over the last 15, 20 years in the quarterback room, that Oklahoma is in the position that they are from a backup quarterback perspective, that they had to run. I mean, I don't know how much of the game you could actually stomach, Mark, on Saturday, but for about at least half of the snaps, they're running a junior high offense because they don't have a quarterback on this roster that's capable of consistently completing a forward pass. 38 yards passing for Davis Bevel. Half of those that he completed were not on target, were not good passes. Receivers just made good plays on. He was having problems just completing a bubble screen, throwing the ball at people's feet. And I think that's the part that's the most concerning for me. Yes, I get the fact that you lost 2 5-star quarterbacks. You've lost some guys in previous cycles. Chandler Morris is at TCU. Tanner Mordecai moved over to SMU. So I get there's been some changes, but there's other programs across the country that are playing from time to time. They'll play with backup quarterbacks, and they can. I mean, they're not obviously. You don't expect the backup to be as good as the starter. That's the reason why he's the backup. But for that to be what Oklahoma had to put out there on Saturday, and for that to be the game plan, that in no real knock on Jeff Lebby. I mean, I'm not inside those walls. That's what they thought gave them the best chance to win this game and to be competitive in this game. And so, I know a lot of people. Why didn't General Booty play? Why didn't Nick Evers play more? Which so to me shows like these guys know much more than I do. Shows the lack of where those guys are at. Being in position to play this game, knowing what you saw from Davis Bevel, and I don't know, Mark. We talked about him early on. He was, yes, I get he was a third string quarterback at Pitt last year, but he was decent. He made one really really bad throw in that bowl game last year, but he was decent. Like for him this year, it looks like it's just moving way too fast. He looks like he's a first year player that's never, that has very limited experience in the position. So that's the major concern for me offensively. Now defensively, like it's a long laundry list of issues. They're not getting pressure on the quarterback. They're not tackling well. They're not covering in the back end when they do cover. They're not playing the ball. Tons of pass interference penalties. I guess the one silver lining, I guess, which maybe is even worse than last week, in a way. The previous week, against TCU, there was tons of busts. There was busts in the secondary that allowed for big plays. Against Texas, there wasn't really any busts, but it was just consistent, long drives. And I get it. Like Texas is a good football team.